Welcome to this DaVinci Resolve Fusion node breakdown. Today's node is the Texture 2D node. So we're going to jump into Fusion, but before we do, I just want to thank everybody for letting us get to 5,000 subscribers. I appreciate it. And if you haven't already done so, be sure you hit that subscribe button and like it, and check those notifications if you want to know when a new one comes out. Additionally, I'll put in the description a link to join and become a member. And there's a bunch of member benefits. So hop over there, become a member, and become part of this community. So we've got a setup here with a little sphere and our render node going on. And the other day, I was going over textures and I was talking about how you're limited about some of the stuff you can bring in here. And one node we have that alleviates that issue is the Texture 2D node. So let's go ahead and grab a Texture 2D node. Texture 2D. We're going to add it to our little node tree here. So what the Texture 2D node does is it sets your metadata of images you want to use as texture maps. And this texture node relies on UV data from your shape. So our shapes have UV data. And if we right click on our channels, we're probably not going to see it right now. But if we go to our render and we go to our output channels, we can check this texture coordinates right here. And if we right click, we can now see on our channels that we've got UV coordinates, U coordinates, and V coordinates. So if I select this UV, you can see it's applying UV coordinates on our little shape. And let me go ahead and uncheck that, turn it off. And let's just look at our color channel. So you can see that data is being pushed through. And when I check that on the render, that just means whether or not that render output is going to push that data or not. But that UV data is within here. So it's being generated by the shape. And that's what this Texture 2D node relies on, is that UV data. So if I brought in, say, a gradient, and I input that, and let's change our gradient here to a gradient, and we'll change our colors up so we can actually see some colors. Let's do a purple, and let's do a yellow. There we go. So if I go to our render node and I bring in our Texture 2D, you can see we just got that gradient applied to our shape. So on the node itself, within our Texture 2D node, up here we can translate our U and our V. So if I translate this on the U, and I can translate it on the V, but you're not going to see much because it's a gradient going from left to right. And I can change the U scale and the V scale all independently. Now down here, the wrap modes we're not going to see when we have it directly connected to this because it's automatically wrapping correctly based off of our UV. But let's say down the line we had a UV map. If you remember, we went over the UV map. So UV map, I'll add that, and then we're going to pretend we needed this to map out our UVs of something else. Now you can see it did something weird. So if we go back to our Texture 2D node and we have to deal with stuff like UV map stuff down the line, we can use these wrap modes. And if we have it selected on wrap, basically this is going to wrap the edges of the image around the borders of the image. And if we had to, say we did this, we can come in and change our scale and our translation to fix our image there. So that would be the wrap mode. Clamp is going to use the color of the edges on the images, and it's kind of close to like a duplicate node. So it's going to duplicate along the edges. And black is just going to clip along the edges. And right here, you can see this is doing something odd because on our UV map node, we didn't change the map type. We had it set on planar, but if we change it to spherical, it would be correct. And then mirror is just going to mirror the edges so it fits correctly. But since our little shape here does automatic UV texturing, we wouldn't need this UV map. So back to the texture 2D node. And down here we have our texture filtering modes, which is the same as all other 3D nodes, and how we're going to filter that on our OpenGL or our hardware from our GPU or our software on our CPU. And you can select for your low Q and high Q for both and what type of filter method you're going to use. And then down here we can change our material ID. So that's all there is to this node. But this node comes in handy when you need to add stuff like bitmaps. So the other day, I kind of lied to you guys and said you couldn't input a bitmap into a shape. I didn't really lie. I just didn't want to cover this node yet. But we could bring in, say, some footage. And we'll bring in our typical spinny little footage here. We're going to add a bitmap. Let's go ahead and use our luminance. And let's look at our alpha channel or alpha channel. And fix our image a little bit. Let's add a little bit of soft edge so it's not so rough. And if we go back to our render here and input this into our texture, you can see we just got that bitmap input into our shape, and if you notice, our alphas are applied as well. So if I play this, you can see it's got transparencies from our alpha in it. And to kind of show that, let's go ahead and copy our shape. Let's put it in there. Let's change our radius, and let's change this back to color. And let's change our color up. And there we go. And additionally, you can see those alphas are casting shadows correctly on our shape on the inside. So if you wanted to add this and create a better texture, what you could do is we could move this and we could add a blend. And then we can input this into our diffuse color. And then input this into our shape material. And then on the blend node, we can control our new little material a little better. So we could add color to it if we want. And we can change our specular to make it shinier or not. And there we go. So we just used our texture 2D map to create a opaque texture, combined it with our blend node, and made a cool little texture out of it. So that is the texture 2D node. I will see you in the next node breakdown.